Let's talk about sensory deprivation in prison. My name's Jesse, and I spent 19 years in the Virginia prison system, and touch, taste, and color were the biggest things that I missed. So I remember when I was in the jail, and everything was white and gray, and the lights never worked right, and it was all just dark and gloomy, and there was mold everywhere. Every time they would transport me to the courthouse, and I would get in the van, and I'd have to put these shackles on in the black box, and it was miserable, but I was so excited because I would be able to look out that window, and I cannot describe to you how bright those colors were, how amazing the experience was, feeling like I'm going from a dungeon or going like Plato's cave out into the world. I'm no longer looking at shadows, I'm looking at the world in all its brilliance and all its color, and I just could not take my eyes off the world. It was like watching things go by that were all of a sudden real. It was like going from being colorblind to being able to see color. It was amazing. And I continued some in prison, but it was really because I could get outside in prison. I could go to rec, because inside all the walls are white, all the walls are gray, there's no color, there's no anything, but being able to go outside gave me that. So I would go and I would walk the rec yard, or I would lay on the table and I would look up at the sky, and I cannot tell you how calming and centering after that environment, and how filling it is to look up in the sky and watch the clouds, watch the blue, watch the contrails, it's an amazing thing. When I think about touch, because in prison, you walk around with this bubble around you. Like, you don't go into somebody else's bubble. They don't go into yours. And there are exceptions to this, obviously. But generally, it's understood that you're not going to just bump into somebody. If you do, you better apologize, because that's a major transgression. You don't touch someone while they're sleeping. You don't touch somebody casually, like in an environment. You don't do that. You don't cross that boundary. And guys will come up with ways to build like rituals and practices. So they'll give each other hugs, they'll have elaborate handshakes. And in many ways, it's just an excuse to touch. It's just an excuse to interact and have that. And it's hard because it's not like none of these things exist. It's not like you never see a color in prison or you never get touch, but you don't get it in that healthy kind of confirming way. And I wondered about that. Like, would I be able to adjust to getting out? Because I was in for a long time. Would I be able to sleep next to somebody one day? Would I be able to be touched in public and not freak out? And I still struggle in places that feel alien or new. Like if I go to a big event or there's a crowd full of people and I don't know them, I do not feel comfortable. Like I feel like I just want to like shrink into myself or pull back into the wall or just leave. But what I found is the day that I got out of prison, it was almost like a light switch flipped. I don't understand. It was like I woke up from a bad dream and I was right back where I was supposed to be. It doesn't mean that the trauma's gone, it's not there, but it's like I can process things in a different way in many situations. I can trust people in a different way in many situations. So when I'm around friends, I love friends that are like affectionate and just will sit close to me, or will just like reach out and touch me, or will just, that's so meaningful to me. And it's one of the things that I appreciate. And generally it'll give me like goosebumps or shivers in a good way because I haven't had that for so long. So then being able to be close to people, being able to feel that touch and that intimacy, and making a point of like hugging my friends every time I see them, like, man, I love you, bro, or I love you, friend. Like, that's important to me. That's a way that I can express how important that touch is and how important that relationship is. And I'm really grateful for that. And then when I think about taste, oh my God, it felt like everything in prison was bland. So from the chow hall, they couldn't add salt to everything because they were worried about people with heart health issues. So everything had no salt, maybe pepper, I don't know, but it felt like nothing had any seasoning. It was all bland. And then you would go to commissary and we would come up with as many creative ways as possible to make things have flavor. So we would use the seasoning packs from a ramen noodle, and then we would use hot sauce, and we would use pickle juice, and we would use mayonnaise. Guys would get really creative. I remember one guy used to make jerk chicken, so he would get orange sodas, and they didn't sell them in our prison, but every now and then someone would get transferred in, he would pay $5 for orange soda, because he knew what he could do with that. He would take that, and it was just amazing the stuff that he could put together. And guys would do that over and over. Remember one guy used to make a mackerel soup, and so it was the, one of the packets from the Thai noodle, which is supposed to be like this Thai rice noodle, but it's like a flavor that a lot of people didn't like. It was that, plus a little bit from a beef seasoning, plus a little bit from pickle, plus a little bit, and it was amazing. Like whatever he did, he managed to create a flavor category because it wasn't in our daily lives. And I remember thinking how unfortunate it was for the guys that didn't have access to commissary, didn't have access to money and support, who wouldn't be able to have that experience, who were going to spend all those years essentially not tasting anything but bland food. And I think about, I was in the commercial foods class. That was one of the trades that I took. And I was able to get real bread. Because up to that point, I had just stopped eating bread. Because the biscuits of the bread that came out of the chow hall or out of the kitchen, they would cut the bread mix or cut the biscuit mix with flour. So it was just really dense. It wouldn't really rise. It just tasted terrible. And you have like fake margarine if you get it, and that counts as your calories. So they'll just like put an extra scoop if there's not enough food. But we had a baker in that commercial foods class, and he made us biscuits one day. And I remember the first time I got a big slab of butter and I put it on there, and I was like, man, I'll try this. Like I took one bite and my mouth was watering. I was like, my head was exploding with joy. It was almost indescribable how good it felt, how it was amazing, just truly amazing. And that's what I try to stay connected to. So last night when I went to an event and there were just sights and smells and tastes and good people and people that I trust that were around, and that's so important to me. Like, I want to go places where I feel that, where I can feel that sense in a safe place. Like I said, I still struggle with like big concerts or big events or big whatever. I put my back against the wall and I just kind of like do the best I can. But in those places that I can let my guard down and I can start to heal and I can start to trust and I can start to feel human again, because I don't think people realize the long-term effects of a lot of the things in prison. I don't think people realize how it shapes us and how in many cases it makes us worse. Because people go into prison almost always having experienced trauma in their lives first. And they lack coping mechanisms and they lack skills to succeed. And there are some people who turn their lives around in prison, but those people are the exception. And they did it in spite of the prison, not because of it. But I think about it, if we were to have a nurturing environment, if we were to actually have nice sights and sounds and smells, because you think about it, like the schools that kids go to are disastrous. The same, monochrome walls and just industrial feel and sterile. That's not good for anybody. It's not good for people in the military to go through that for years and years and years. It's not good for people in any institution. And so when we look at this, it isn't just about prison. It's often about those kids that grew up in that poor environment, that go to a school with bars on the windows just like a prison, built just like a prison, with the same block walls and the same colors. Like, we're not training our kids to be human beings. We're training them to be kind of like factory processing, elements. And I think there's so much more that we can do. And I know that I'm grateful every day, and I try to stay connected to that, because no matter how busy I get or how crazy I get or how overwhelmed I get, I recognize that I can come out here and I have a plant that I can feel and doesn't have much of a smell, but I can try to smell. I have things I can taste. I have people that I can call and I can go get a hug from, or I can go give a hug to. I'm able to connect with people in a way that is so meaningful and so important. I didn't have that for the longest time. So no matter what comes up, no matter how big of a struggle, when I can turn to those things, when I can get that connection and that sensory stimulation, I can go walk out in nature and I can smell the leaves and I can smell the trees, and that gives me something to live for. And I'm grateful for it every day.